Welcome to the Go Find Out podcast. I'm Jennifer Jelliff Russell, author, speaker, and entrepreneur, bringing you actionable ideas and interviews with awesome women to help you pursue your dreams and achieve your goals. You can find more episodes of the Go Find Out podcast by visiting gofindoutpodcast.com. Enjoy the show and go find out. Welcome to the Go Find Out podcast, episode number 20. I'm your host, Jennifer Jelliff Russell. And how exciting is it that I'm at episode number 20 for this podcast? I'm super stoked about that, you guys. So today's show it's going to be a solo show, and it's going to be focused on how to start where you are with your own goals. No matter what those goals are or how big they are or how difficult you think they might be, we're going to talk about how you can start where you are. No matter what your goal is, there's always some small step that you can take toward achieving it. It's really easy to let fear rule us and allow us to make excuses for why we're not moving forward with working toward our goals. Fear can manifest as excuses like, I don't have the money to buy the equipment, or I don't have the time to spend on that project right now, I can't start a business in this economy, or I don't know how to use, X software, hardware, etc., or I'm not smart enough, thin enough, fast enough, whatever, to be able to do the thing that you want to do. The common denominator here is that these thoughts come from a place of fear and negative thinking. It's easier to tell ourselves that we don't have what it takes to complete our goal than it is to make ourselves push toward achieving it. And don't get me wrong, positive thinking is great, but it's not going to suddenly drop $1 million in your lap or fix the economy so you can open a business, right? I mean, I like the law of attraction, but I also want to be realistic here. So being a positive Polly is not always the thing that's going to fix what's going on. However, if you flip the script on this way of thinking, and instead of saying, I can't, or I don't, or, I'm not good enough kind of thing, if you flip the script and say, okay, I don't have this equipment, but what can I do to still make this thing happen? That will take you one step closer to your goals than if you do nothing. Let's use starting a podcast as an example of the, I don't have X equipment or I don't have X money to start this. It's true that there's a ton of advice out there on what kind of equipment that you should buy, and that you should invest in. And there can definitely be a ton of upfront costs in starting a podcast, but that's only if you decide to incur those costs. If you really want to start a podcast, all you need is a smartphone and occasional access to the internet to upload your episodes. You don't have to pay for website hosting. You don't have to pay for a podcast host. There are a ton of free podcast hosts out there and free podcast recording apps for your phone where you literally record it into that app and then upload it straight to that podcast host, and it's all free, right? Yes, then you'll potentially have some ads on there that you don't get to make the decision of what products that they place, but you know what? You're getting your podcast out, right? So it's all about what you're choosing to accept. And if you're just using the I don't have the equipment or I don't have the money to start a podcast as an excuse to just not start. One of my lame excuses for not starting the podcast was that I didn't have a quiet space to record. However, after looking up free ideas for recording spaces, I found tons of people were just using their closets, right? They would just move their clothing aside and set up within their closet, and the clothing around them helped to dampen the sound and reduce any kind of echoes. I didn't need to spend big bucks just to buy a mini recording studio, right? Now, I have to say I'm really lucky that my husband and I are in the process of renovating our farmhouse, and my husband converted one of the closets upstairs into more of a soundproof room. However, when I say soundproof room, it's just an unfinished closet with extra insulation, okay? It's not fancy. The insulation is still exposed. We haven't finished it yet. I don't have a door on it. I'm literally just using 2 moving blankets nailed to the doorway. They're just doubled up so that it adds a little bit of extra soundproofing because I live next to a very busy highway. And even with all of that, I still occasionally get the sound of big semi-tractor trailers passing by, and I have to pause my recording so that you can't hear it in the background. There's definitely podcasts that I've uploaded that have that sound in the background, but I was kind of like, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway because I can't make it perfect. And if I waited until it was perfect, I would never do this. So again, starting where you are. And I will make sure to upload some photos of my sweet recording booth for you guys to see. So, okay, why am I blathering on about this? The reason is because the excuses that we tell ourselves tend to be the number one reason we don't move forward toward our goals. We are the biggest barrier toward achieving our goals because of the things that we tell ourselves. If you've listened to some of my recent interviews, you'll hear that most of my guests say that they didn't get external pushback from other people or friends. Some of them did, but many of them, their pushback was actually internal. They had these negative dialogues that they were telling themselves, they couldn't do it or they wouldn't succeed. And they had to reframe those thoughts in order to really get started in moving toward their goals. So rather than coming from a space of, I can't do this thing, or I don't have the money or the equipment or the right body or whatever, instead, ask yourself, what is one step that I can take today to move forward toward my goal? If you've been stuck in moving forward, take a moment to write down your end goal. It doesn't matter how big your end goal is. It could be this big, hairy, audacious goal of doing something huge, but you still have to start with one small step. Next, break down your goal into actionable and realistic steps. And I don't care if you write down your goal and then you have one step. That's fine. That's a start. Another example is one of my personal goals is to write 20 books in the next 5 years. If I break this down into actionable and realistic chunks, that means that I need to write 4 books a year. And that number breaks down further to writing 1 book every 3 months. After writing a few books, I know that I'm usually able to write about 1,000 to 1,500 words a day, give or take a little. And that's usually within a 1 to 2 hour span. And that idea to write only 1,000 words a day for 3 months, I'd actually have a good-sized first draft of 90,000 words. But if I said, I'm going to write 90,000 words in 3 months, that's kind of overwhelming. So instead, I'm going to stick with reframing it as I'm going to write 1,000 words a day, because that feels more doable and less scary and intimidating than 90,000 words in 3 months. It's the same thing, right? I'm going to get that same end goal, but it's less scary to word it that way. Remember that the steps that you're going for here, they need to be realistic. Like if I said I'm going to write a book in a weekend, which I've literally thought before and been like, I'm going to do this. And then what did I do? I didn't do it because it was intimidating and completely unrealistic. And I should know better because I know what my writing abilities are. But if I tried to tell myself that, then I would quickly become overwhelmed by the prospect of having to complete a book in a weekend, and I would just quit writing. I just wouldn't do it. But let's say that you have other goals. Maybe you want to, visit every country in the world. So right now, you have the pretty simple excuse that you can't travel anywhere right now because of the pandemic, right? And you wouldn't be wrong to say that. But instead, if you say to yourself, okay, I know I can't travel right now, but what can I do to prepare for travel later? What can I do to prepare for traveling when things open back up? You might realize that this could be a really great time to maybe apply for your passport if you don't already have one. Or maybe it's a good time to check out free books from the library and start researching the next country that you plan to visit when things do open back up. How about another example? If your goal is to open a business, but you don't have the funds, what are the things that you can do right now to move one step closer to your goal? You could start researching what kind of paperwork you need to complete in order to get your business started. You could start researching government grants that might apply to your business. Or you could meet virtually with a Small Business Administration representative or SBA representative and get free coaching on how to build your business plan. Regardless of what your goal is, there's almost always some step that you can take in a matter of a few minutes or maybe setting aside an hour or so and move closer towards your goal. So I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing that you can do today that will take you closer to your end goal? And I would love to hear what steps that you're taking towards your goal today. You can tweet them to me at GFO Podcast, or if you're stuck, let me know. Maybe I can help you come up with that first actionable step and you can take it today. All right, join me next week when I interview Yolanda Russell, who is a business and branding coach helping women achieve their entrepreneurial dreams. And it was a super fun interview because Yolanda was such a joy to speak with. Like, she is just so super enthusiastic and excited about what she does. And it's definitely contagious. After speaking with her, I was very much like, okay, what can I do to continue building my brand and continue reaching more listeners? And so, I'm hoping that I will drum up enough courage. So this is one of my steps, guys, to start doing reels on Instagram, which is like the little videos. And I'm not a huge fan of being on camera, but I just need to suck it up and try it. The worst thing that can happen is I lose followers, right? Because they're like, she's ridiculous, but hopefully not. Maybe it'll bring some more listeners to us. But I hope that you guys all are able to find at least one step that you can take today to start working towards your personal or professional goals. That's it for today. Now go find out. Thanks for listening to the show today. I hope you found the information beneficial and that it helps you tackle your own Go Find Out goals. You can find more episodes and the show transcripts at gofindoutpodcast.com. You can also let me know what you thought of the show by tweeting me at GFOpodcast or follow me on Instagram at GoFindOutPodcast. That's it for today. Now go find out.